The day started like any other. People rushed to work, children laughed in playgrounds, and the world spun on its axis, unaware of the impending doom. It was 2:15 p.m. when the first reports came in. Strange objects, massive and gleaming, appeared in the skies over major cities worldwide. At first, many thought it was a hoax or a publicity stunt. Social media buzzed with theories and jokes. But as more sightings flooded in, a creeping sense of dread began to spread. News channels scrambled to cover the story, their anchors struggling to keep the panic from their voices. By 3:00 p.m., governments worldwide had issued emergency broadcasts. Stay indoors, they urge. Remain calm. But calm was in short supply as the alien ships hovered ominously overhead, silent and still. In New York, Sarah Thompson clutched her phone, trying to reach her husband. The streets below her office window were chaos. Cars honked, people ran, and sirens wailed in the distance. Her call went straight to voicemail. Again. Across the globe in Tokyo, Hiroshi Tanaka stood frozen in the middle of Shibuya Crossing. The usually bustling intersection was eerily quiet. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the sky, where a massive ship loomed over the city's skyline. At 3:30 p.m., the attack began. It wasn't the explosive, destructive assault many had feared. Instead, it was subtle, almost invisible. The alien ships released a pale, shimmering mist that drifted down towards Earth. As it descended, birds began to fall from the sky, their small bodies unable to cope with the sudden change in air composition. Scientists later named them oxygen bombs, devices that rapidly increased oxygen levels in the atmosphere to toxic levels. For the aliens, it was a perfect weapon. It left infrastructure intact while targeting Earth's oxygen-breathing inhabitants. Panic erupted as people began to realize the air itself had become a weapon. In London, the streets filled with the sound of breaking glass as people smashed windows, desperately trying to get indoors. In Rio de Janeiro, beaches emptied in minutes, leaving behind a wasteland of abandoned umbrellas and towels. By 4:00 p.m., the true horror of the attack became clear. Those caught outside began to show signs of oxygen toxicity. Dizziness, confusion, and seizures swept through the exposed population. Hospitals were quickly overwhelmed, their staff struggling to treat a condition they'd never encountered before. In a small town in the American Midwest, John Miller watched in horror as his neighbors collapsed in their yards. He rushed from house to house, dragging people inside, sealing doors and windows with duct tape. His hands shook, but he worked tirelessly, driven by a desperate need to save as many as he could. Underground, in the Paris metro, hundreds huddled in the tunnels. Among them was Marie Dubois, a medical student. She organized the scared crowds, rationing water and keeping people calm. As hours passed, she wondered if they would ever see the sun again. Military bases worldwide scrambled to respond, but traditional weapons seemed useless against the alien ship's advanced technology. Fighter jets that got too close to the vessels fell from the sky, their pilots overcome by the toxic atmosphere. By nightfall, an eerie silence had fallen over much of the world. Streets lay empty, littered with abandoned vehicles and the occasional still form. The alien ships continued their silent vigil, occasionally releasing more of the deadly mist to maintain the toxic atmosphere. In underground bunkers and sealed buildings, the survivors huddled. They clung to radios and phones, desperate for news, for hope. Governments struggled to coordinate a response, their leaders safe in protected facilities while their citizens suffered. As the first day of the invasion drew to a close, humanity faced an uncertain future. The air outside was poison. Alien ships controlled the skies, and no one knew if help would ever come. But in pockets of resistance around the world, people began to plan, to adapt, to fight back. The aliens had won the first battle, but the war for Earth had only just begun. Humanity, with its back against the wall, was about to show the universe what it was made of. The silent skies wouldn't stay silent for long. 3 days after the alien attack, The world had changed beyond recognition. The streets of once bustling cities lay empty, a thick, shimmering haze hanging in the air. But beneath the surface, pockets of humanity fought to survive. In New York City, the subway system had become a lifeline. Thousands of people huddled in the dark tunnels, grateful for the natural protection they offered from the toxic air above. Among them was Tom Chen, a former subway engineer. He had become an unlikely leader, organizing the survivors into groups and assigning tasks. "We need to conserve our food and water," Tom announced to the crowd gathered around him. "We don't know how long we'll be down here." His words were met with scared murmurs, but also nods of understanding. Everyone knew the stakes. Across the Atlantic, in London, a different kind of survival was taking place. The Natural History Museum had become a fortress of science. Dr. Emma Watson, a climatologist, led a team of scientists working around the clock to understand the alien weapon. "The oxygen levels outside are still lethal," Emma reported, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "But we're making progress on a filtration system." Her colleagues nodded grimly, aware that their work might be humanity's best hope. In the countryside of France, farmers had become unexpected heroes. Their silos, designed to store grain, had been quickly converted into airtight shelters. Pierre Dubois, a wheat farmer, now found himself responsible for the lives of over 100 people. "We have enough food," Pierre told the group assembled in his largest silo. "But we need to find a way to purify the air outside." A young engineer raised her hand, an idea forming. Together, they began to sketch out plans for a makeshift air filtration system. Underground military bunkers around the world had become command centers for the resistance. In one such bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Rodriguez pored over reports from around the globe. "We've lost contact with the East Coast," a junior officer reported. Sarah's jaw tightened. "Keep trying. We need to coordinate our efforts if we're going to fight back." In Tokyo, the high-tech smart buildings had become islands of survival. Their advanced air filtration systems, designed to combat pollution, now worked overtime to keep the toxic atmosphere at bay. Akira Tanaka, a software engineer, worked furiously to network these buildings together. "If we can link up all the smart buildings," Akira explained to his team, "we can create a communication network, maybe even find a way to fight back." But not all survival stories were tales of heroism and hope. In some places, desperation led to darker outcomes. In a sealed shopping mall in Rio de Janeiro, a group of survivors fought over dwindling supplies. "We can't let them in," a man shouted, pointing at a group of people banging on the mall's doors, begging for entry. "There's not enough air for all of us." Others argued back, their humanity warring with their instinct for survival. In the end, the doors remained closed, a decision that would haunt them. As the first week under siege came to a close, small victories began to emerge. In Sydney, a group of marine biologists made a crucial discovery. The algae in the harbor, Dr. Lisa Chen explained excitedly to her colleagues. "It's producing oxygen faster than the aliens can poison it. The water is safe." This discovery sparked a global effort to cultivate algae and other oxygen-producing plants, offering a glimmer of hope in the fight to reclaim the air. In space, astronauts aboard the International Space Station watched helplessly as their home planet was engulfed in the alien mist. But they weren't idle. Using their unique vantage point, they began mapping the movements of the alien ships, relaying this crucial intelligence to the resistance below. On the ground, in labs and bunkers, in converted silos and fortified buildings, humanity refused to give up. Scientists worked tirelessly on defenses against the oxygen bombs. Engineers retrofit vehicles with air filtration systems. Farmers experimented with growing food in sealed environments. It was a battle for survival, fought not with guns and bombs, but with ingenuity, cooperation, and the unbreakable human spirit. The aliens had sought to suffocate humanity, but in doing so, they had only fanned the flames of human resilience. As the sun set on another day of occupation, the message spread through hidden communities around the world. breathe, adapt, resist. Humanity's last breath would not be its final one. The fight was just beginning. 2 weeks into the alien invasion, hope was a scarce commodity. But in a secret underground lab beneath the ruins of MIT, Dr. Aisha Khan refused to give up. Day and night, she worked tirelessly, analyzing data from the alien ships and the toxic atmosphere they had created. Aisha's lab was a mess of computers, air sampling equipment, and hastily scribbled notes. Her team had dwindled to just 3 other scientists, each as determined as she was to find a way to fight back. There has to be a pattern, Aisha muttered, her eyes red from lack of sleep. She stared at the screen, willing the numbers to make sense. Suddenly, her colleague, Dr. James Chen, burst into the room. Aisha, you need to see this. He was waving a tablet, his face a mix of excitement and disbelief. On the screen was a video feed from a weather satellite. It showed an alien ship retreating from an area of heavy industrial activity in China. What am I looking at, James? Aisha asked, her brow furrowed. Watch the atmospheric readings, James replied, pointing to a set of numbers in the corner of the screen. As the ship moved away, Aisha saw it. The carbon dioxide levels in the area were significantly higher than normal. Could it be? Aisha whispered, her mind racing. Are they sensitive to CO2? The team sprang into action, gathering all the data they could on carbon dioxide levels around the world. They cross-referenced this with alien ship movements and attack patterns. Hours turned into days as they worked, fueled by a mix of caffeine and newfound hope. Finally, on the 3rd day, Aisha stood before her team, her eyes shining with triumph. It's confirmed, she announced. The aliens can't tolerate high levels of carbon dioxide. That's why they're increasing oxygen levels. They're terraforming Earth to suit their biology. The implications were staggering. Humanity had inadvertently been fighting the aliens all along with their industrial emissions. Now, they had a weapon. Word of the discovery spread quickly through the remnants of the global scientific community. In hidden labs and makeshift bunkers around the world, researchers began to devise ways to use this knowledge. In Germany, a team of engineers started modifying car engines to produce more CO2. In Brazil, botanists looked for ways to rapidly increase the carbon dioxide output of plants. And in Japan, a group of atmospheric scientists began modeling how to safely increase global CO2 levels. But the aliens weren't oblivious to this shift in human activity. Their attacks intensified, focusing on areas with high carbon dioxide emissions. In a fortified command center in Colorado, General Rodriguez received the news of Aisha's discovery with cautious optimism. It's a start, she told her advisors. But we need a way to weaponize this information. Ideas, people. A young lieutenant spoke up. What if we could deliver concentrated bursts of CO2 directly to their ships? The room buzzed with excitement as they began to plan Operation Carbon Strike. Meanwhile, in orbit, the crew of the International Space Station had made a discovery of their own. Using their instruments, they had detected minute fluctuations in the alien ship's energy fields when exposed to solar radiation. It's like their shields weakened for a split second. Astronaut Yuki Tanaka explained during a secure transmission to Earth. If we could hit them with a CO2 weapon at exactly the right moment. Back in Aisha's lab, the team worked on refining their understanding of the alien biology. They theorized that the invaders must come from a planet with a thin atmosphere, low in carbon dioxide, and rich in oxygen. They'd probably evolved in an environment similar to Earth's upper atmosphere. Aisha explained to a group of military officers. That's why they're trying to recreate those conditions here. As the 3rd week of the invasion drew to a close, a sense of cautious optimism began to spread among the survivors. For the first time since the attack began, humanity had a real chance to fight back. In labs and workshops around the world, people worked feverishly to develop CO2 weapons. Car engines were modified into CO2 generators. Fire extinguishers were repurposed into anti-alien spray guns. Aisha, now a symbol of hope for many, continued her research. She knew that understanding the enemy was key to defeating them. As she looked out of a small, reinforced window at the hazy sky above, Aisha allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated human ingenuity and the power of discovery. The tide was about to turn. Humanity had found the alien weakness, and they were ready to exploit it. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and this time, Earth's defenders had a fighting chance. The discovery of the aliens' weakness to carbon dioxide sparked a global revolution. Humanity, once on the brink of defeat, now had a fighting chance. All around the world, people sprang into action, determined to turn the tide of the war. In the ruins of Detroit, former auto workers repurposed abandoned factories. The assembly lines that once produced cars now churned out CO2 generators. These devices, cobbled together from old engines and industrial equipment, became the new weapon of choice for the resistance. Sarah, a former line worker, wiped sweat from her brow as she finished another generator. "Never thought I'd be thankful for pollution," she muttered, a grim smile on her face. Meanwhile, in the Amazon rainforest, a different kind of resistance was taking shape. Dr. Carlos Mendoza, a botanist, led a team working to increase the CO2 output of plants. "We're modifying these trees to absorb less carbon dioxide," Carlos explained to a group of local volunteers. "It's counterintuitive, but it's our best chance to increase CO2 levels quickly." The dense jungle provided natural cover from alien patrols, allowing the scientists to work in relative safety. As the modified plants grew, the air around their camp grew thick and heavy, a testament to their success. Across the ocean in Mumbai, the city's vast slums had become a hotbed of guerrilla manufacturing. In hidden workshops, people worked day and night to produce simple but effective CO2 weapons. Priya, a teenage girl with a knack for engineering, demonstrated her latest invention to a group of resistance fighters. "It's a CO2 grenade," she explained, holding up a makeshift device. "Pull the pin, throw, and it releases a cloud of carbon dioxide." The fighters nodded appreciatively, hope glimmering in their eyes for the first time in weeks. In the skies above, the resistance took on a different form. Pilots from air forces around the world had banded together, modifying their planes to release trails of concentrated CO2. Captain Lee of the South Korean Air Force banked his jet sharply, releasing a thick plume of carbon dioxide as he flew past an alien ship. The massive vessel shuddered, its force field flickering momentarily. "It's working," Lee shouted into his radio. "Keep it up, squad." On the ground, urban centers became fortresses of resistance. In New York City, the inhabitants of the subway system emerged, armed with fire extinguishers and homemade CO2 guns. Tom Chen, the former subway engineer, now led a team of runners. They darted through the streets, laying traps and ambushing alien patrols with bursts of carbon dioxide. "Remember," Tom briefed his team, "hit and run. We can't match their firepower, but we can make them choke on our air." In laboratories around the world, scientists worked tirelessly to refine their CO2 weapons. Dr. Aisha Khan, whose discovery had started it all, now led a global team of researchers. "We're working on a way to deliver concentrated CO2 directly into their ships," Aisha explained during a video conference with resistance leaders. "If we can flood their internal atmosphere, we might be able to incapacitate entire crews at once." The resistance wasn't without its setbacks. The aliens, realizing the threat, began targeting CO2 production facilities with increased ferocity. Many brave men and women lost their lives defending these crucial installations. In London, the Natural History Museum, once a bastion of science, now lay in ruins after a brutal alien attack. Dr. Emma Watson stood in the rubble, her face streaked with tears and soot. "We'll rebuild," she said firmly to her team. "They can destroy our buildings, but they can't destroy our knowledge." As weeks turned into months, the resistance grew stronger. Underground networks spread across continents, sharing information and resources. Every day, more people joined the fight, armed with CO2 weapons and an indomitable spirit. In orbit, the crew of the International Space Station continued to provide crucial intelligence. They had become the eyes of the resistance, tracking alien movements and coordinating global efforts. "We've detected a weakness in their formation over the Pacific," astronaut Yuki Tanaka reported. "If we strike now, we might be able to take out a significant portion of their fleet." On every continent, in every country, humanity united in a way it never had before. Old rivalries were forgotten as people worked together against a common enemy. The air grew thicker, heavier with carbon dioxide. For humans, it was uncomfortable but manageable. For the aliens, it was becoming increasingly hostile. As the resistance gathered strength, preparing for a major offensive, a sense of cautious optimism spread. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, but it had not broken. Instead, it had adapted, innovated, and risen to the challenge. The CO2 revolution was in full swing, and the aliens were about to learn a harsh lesson. Earth's greatest pollution would become its ultimate salvation. The day of humanity's great counterattack had finally arrived. After months of preparation, resistance forces around the world were ready to launch Operation Greenhouse, a coordinated global assault on the alien invaders using Earth's newest weapon, carbon dioxide. In the war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Rodriguez stood before a massive screen displaying a map of the world. Red dots represented alien strongholds, while green dots showed human resistance bases. "Today, we take back our planet," Sarah declared, her voice firm and resolute. "All units, commence Operation Greenhouse." Across the globe, the resistance sprang into action. In the skies over New York, a squadron of fighter jets, their engines modified to produce extra CO2, engaged a cluster of alien ships. Captain Mike Chen, leading the squadron, gritted his teeth as he maneuvered his plane. "Fox Squadron, release CO2 payloads on my mark," he ordered. 3, 2, 1, mark. The jets released thick clouds of carbon dioxide, enveloping the alien vessels. The extraterrestrial craft shuddered and faltered, their shields weakening under the assault. On the ground, resistance fighters emerged from hiding, armed with CO2 grenades and makeshift gas guns. In London, Dr. Emma Watson led a team through the city streets, targeting alien ground forces. "Remember, aim for their breathing apparatus," Emma shouted as she lobbed a CO2 grenade at an approaching alien patrol. The creatures stumbled and fell as the gas engulfed them. In the Amazon rainforest, Dr. Carlos Mendoza and his team activated their network of modified plants. Vast swaths of the jungle began releasing unprecedented amounts of carbon dioxide into the air. "It's working," Carlos exclaimed, watching as nearby alien ships started to lose altitude. "The increased CO2 levels are affecting their systems." Meanwhile, in orbit, the crew of the International Space Station played a crucial role. Using their unique vantage point, they coordinated the global assault, guiding resistance forces to weak points in the alien defenses. "Tokyo Resistance, you have a clear shot at the mothership over Mount Fuji," astronaut Yuki Tanaka radioed. "Strike now." In response, a group of Japanese fighters, led by ace pilot Hiro Nakamura, launched a daring attack on the massive alien vessel. Their CO2 missiles hit home, causing the ship to list dangerously in the sky. Beneath the seas, another front in the war opened up. Submarines retrofitted to release concentrated CO2 bubbles engaged alien underwater bases. Commander Zoe Fletcher, at the helm of the U.S. Nautilus, watched with satisfaction as an alien structure imploded under the stress of the CO2 assault. "That's for Earth," she muttered. Back in her lab, Dr. Aisha Khan monitored the global CO2 levels. "We're approaching critical concentration," she warned over a secure channel. "Any humans still outside need to get to shelter immediately." As the battle raged on, the aliens began to retreat. Their ships, once seemingly invincible, now flowed from Earth's strengthened atmosphere. In city after city, cheers erupted as people witnessed the invaders' withdrawal. But the fight was far from over. In a last, desperate move, the alien command ship launched a massive oxygen bomb, aimed at the heart of the Amazon rainforest. "We can't let that hit," Carlos yelled into his radio. "It'll undo everything we've accomplished." In response, a squadron of Earth's fastest jets scrambled to intercept. Led by Brazilian pilot Ana Silva, they raced against time to stop the alien weapon. "This is for my home," Ana said as she locked onto the bomb. With expert precision, she fired a CO2 missile, detonating the oxygen bomb high in the atmosphere where it could do no harm. As the day wore on, it became clear that the tide had turned. Alien ships were falling from the sky or fleeing into space. On the ground, resistance fighters mopped up the remaining extraterrestrial forces, armed with their CO2 weapons. In the war room, General Rodriguez watched as the red dots on the screen blinked out one by one. A cautious smile spread across her face. "We've won the battle," she announced to her cheering staff. But the war isn't over yet. Around the world, people emerged from shelters, blinking in the sunlight of a changed Earth. The air was thick with TO2, and it would take time for the atmosphere to return to normal. But for now, no one seemed to mind. They were alive, and their planet was theirs once more. As night fell, the last of the alien ships disappeared from Earth's skies. Humanity had stood its ground and emerged victorious. Operation Greenhouse was a success, but the struggle to rebuild and reclaim their world was just beginning. The victory of Operation Greenhouse had given humanity a much-needed boost, but the war was far from over. The alien forces, though weakened, were regrouping for a final, desperate assault. Earth's defenders knew they had to act fast to secure their advantage. In a secure bunker beneath what was once the United Nations building in New York, world leaders and top scientists gathered for an emergency summit. The air was tense as Dr. Aisha Khan took the stage to present her latest findings. "The aliens are adapting," Aisha announced, her voice grave. "Our CO2 weapons are becoming less effective. We need a more permanent solution." The room erupted in murmurs of concern. General Sarah Rodriguez stood up, her face set in determination. "What do you propose, Doctor?" Aisha took a deep breath before responding. "We need to change Earth's atmosphere on a global scale, make it permanently inhospitable to the aliens, while still habitable for us." The audacious plan was met with a mix of awe and skepticism. "Is such a thing even possible?" asked the Chinese premier, voicing the doubts of many in the room. "It's risky," Aisha admitted, "but I believe it's our best chance for long-term survival." After hours of heated debate, the council reached a decision. Operation Terraform, as it was dubbed, would commence immediately. Around the world, the resistance shifted into high gear. In the Amazon, Dr. Carlos Mendoza and his team worked tirelessly to engineer plants that could rapidly produce and release massive amounts of CO2. "We're playing a dangerous game," Carlos muttered as he examined a genetically modified tree. "But it's our only choice." In the skies, Earth's remaining air forces, led by Captain Ana Silva, engaged in continual battles with alien ships. Their mission was twofold: defend the planet and release specially designed CO2 bombs high in the atmosphere. "Echo Squadron, deploy CO2 payloads," Ana commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos of aerial combat. She watched with grim satisfaction as the bombs burst, releasing thick clouds of carbon dioxide. Beneath the waves, submarine fleets worked to alter the ocean's chemistry. Commander Zoe Fletcher of the U.S. Nautilus oversaw the deployment of CO2 injection systems on the seafloor. Steady as she goes, Zoe ordered as her sub navigated through a field of alien underwater mines. "We can't afford any mistakes." On land, every factory, every vehicle, every CO2 generator was pushed to its limit. The air grew thicker by the day, a haze settling over cities and countryside alike. For humans, It was uncomfortable but manageable thanks to hastily developed filtration systems. For the aliens, it was becoming lethal. In orbit, the crew of the International Space Station played a crucial role in monitoring the changing atmosphere. Astronaut Yuki Tanaka watched in awe as the blue planet below slowly turned a murky gray. Earth to ISS. Came a transmission from Mission Control. What's your status? The transformation is progressing faster than expected, Yuki reported. But we're also detecting increased alien activity on the far side of the moon. They're planning something big. The news sent a wave of urgency through the resistance. The race was on to complete Operation Terraform before the aliens could launch their counterattack. As the days passed, the effects of the atmospheric change became more pronounced. Alien ships struggled to maintain altitude, their systems failing in the carbon-rich air. On the ground, the invaders moved sluggishly, their breathing apparatus unable to cope with the new environment. But the operation wasn't without its costs. Ecosystems around the world were thrown into chaos. Weather patterns shifted dramatically, causing storms of unprecedented fury. And despite the protective measures, many humans suffered from the effects of the thickening air. In her lab, Dr. Aisha Khan worked feverishly to monitor the atmospheric changes and predict their long-term effects. "We're walking a fine line," she explained to a group of concerned officials. "Too much change, and we'll make Earth uninhabitable for ourselves as well." As the atmosphere approached the critical point, tension mounted. Would the plan work, or had humanity gone too far in its desperation to survive? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. As dawn broke over the Himalayas, the first of the alien motherships began to fall from the sky. Its massive hull, unable to function in the altered atmosphere, plummeted to Earth in a spectacular fireball. Around the world, similar scenes played out. Alien craft, large and small, faltered and crashed. The invaders' ground forces, cut off from support and unable to breathe, began to surrender en masse. In the war room, General Rodriguez watched the events unfold with a mix of relief and disbelief. I think we've done it," she said, her voice hoarse with emotion. As the realization of victory spread, cheers erupted in bunkers, shelters, and resistance bases around the globe. Humanity had taken a desperate gamble, and against all odds, it had paid off. But even as they celebrated, Earth's defenders knew that the hardest part was yet to come. They had won the war, but now they faced an even greater challenge: healing their wounded planet and building a new future in this changed world. The battle for Earth's atmosphere was over, but the struggle for Earth's future was just beginning. The alien invasion was over. Humanity had emerged victorious, but at a great cost. The Earth they had fought so hard to protect was now a changed world. As the dust settled and the last alien ships disappeared into the cosmos, the real work began. 1 year after the final battle, Dr. Aisha Khan stood on a platform overlooking the rebuilt United Nations headquarters in New York. The sky above was still hazy, a constant reminder of the drastic measures they had taken to survive. "Today, we celebrate not just our victory, but our resilience," Aisha began, addressing a crowd of thousands and millions more watching around the world. "We faced extinction and rewrote the rules of our own planet to survive. Now we must heal the Earth and ourselves." The crowd cheered, their faces a mix of hope and determination. Among them stood familiar heroes of the war: General Sarah Rodriguez, astronaut Yuki Tanaka, and many others who had risked everything in humanity's darkest hour. In the Amazon rainforest, Dr. Carlos Mendoza led a team of botanists and ecologists in an ambitious reforestation project. The genetically modified trees that had helped win the war were now being carefully managed to reduce CO2 levels. "It's a delicate balance," Carlos explained to a group of international scientists. "We need to lower carbon dioxide levels slowly to avoid shocking the system." He gestured to a plot of seedlings, a new variety designed to thrive in the altered atmosphere while gradually cleaning the air. Across the oceans, Commander Zoe Fletcher had traded her submarine for a research vessel. The U.S. Nautilus, once a weapon of war, now sailed the seas monitoring marine ecosystems and studying the long-term effects of the atmospheric changes. The oceans are recovering faster than we expected, Zoe reported during a video conference with the Global Restoration Committee. But we're seeing new patterns in currents and marine life migration. We need to stay vigilant. In orbit, the International Space Station had been joined by a fleet of new satellites. These eyes in the sky played a crucial role in monitoring Earth's healing process. Yuki Tanaka, now the head of the Global Climate Observation Program, coordinated the efforts from Mission Control. We're detecting a 0.5% decrease in overall CO2 levels this quarter, Yuki announced to her team. It's slow progress, but it's steady. On the ground, cities were being rebuilt with a new vision. Green technology, once a luxury, was now a necessity. Captain Anna Silva, the ace pilot who had become a symbol of resistance, now led a team developing atmospheric scrubbers for urban areas. Every rooftop, every street corner is an opportunity to clean our air, Anna explained as she unveiled a new model of CO2 filter. We're not just rebuilding our cities, we're reimagining them. But not all the changes were technological. The shared experience of facing annihilation had profoundly altered human society. Old rivalries and conflicts seemed petty in the face of what they had endured together. A new era of global cooperation had dawned. In what was once a war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Rodriguez now oversaw the Earth Defense Force, a multinational organization dedicated to protecting the planet from future threats. We must remain vigilant, Sarah reminded her staff during a briefing. The universe is vast, and we may not be alone. But now, we're prepared. The alien technology left behind proved to be both a blessing and a challenge. Teams of scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to understand and adapt the advanced tech for humanity's benefit. Dr. Emma Watson, leading the Alien Tech Integration Project, made a breakthrough in clean energy production. By reverse engineering their propulsion systems, we've developed a new form of fusion power, she announced at a press conference. This could be the key to restoring our planet's environment. As the years passed, the scars of war slowly faded. The thick haze in the sky thinned, revealing blue skies that many had feared they'd never see again. Wildlife, adapting to the changed world, began to flourish in new and unexpected ways. 5 years after the invasion, humanity celebrated another milestone. The first human colony on Mars, built using a combination of Earth and adapted alien technology, sent back its first transmission. Mars Base 1 to Earth came the historic message. The red planet is now home to the human race. We carry with us the lessons of Earth and the unbreakable spirit that saw us through our darkest hour. Back on Earth, in a small park dedicated to those lost in the war, Aisha Khan watched a group of children playing. Their laughter, carefree and joyous, was the sweetest sound she had ever heard. We did it, she whispered to herself, a tear sliding down her cheek. We survived, we adapted, and now we thrive. As the sun set on another day in this brave new world, humanity looked to the future with hope and determination. They had faced the ultimate test and emerged stronger. The stars, once a source of terror, now beckoned with the promise of new adventures and discoveries. Earth, scared but healing, remained a testament to the indomitable human spirit. Against all odds, humanity had not just survived, but had written a new chapter in its history. A chapter of resilience, unity, and the unwavering will to forge their own destiny among the stars.